What I really want you to notice about this particular survey is that it kind of throws a few survey best practices out the window, but it works really, really well. When you have a brand that is so engaging, that has such an engaged audience rather, you can get away with letting go of the best practices and question design and really going into the heart of like how to engage and invite someone into a conversation, which is essentially what a survey is doing, right? You're asking them a series of questions and inviting them to share more about themselves. So I brought this up because it does such a great job of that, and it rests on the laurels of the relationship with the audience. So Cassandra is someone that I follow on Instagram. She is a stylist. She's really, really great. I love the content that she puts out. I've been following her for a while now, and she's got she's very engaged with the audience, even on Instagram, even like reacting to, like gathering our reactions to the content that she's putting out, engaging in the comments, just a lot of like back and forth, and that builds a really, really strong rapport. And you can see that rapport play out in the way that she's writing this email. It doesn't even feel like a survey. It kind of just feels like I'm chatting with a friend. So the thing about surveys is that you technically don't want them to feel like surveys, but when you're chatting with a friend, friends are direct. And it's okay for them to be direct because they're your friends. They don't need to persuade you as much to, like do something, like give them some help or fill out some kind of survey. They're more willing because they're your friend, right? And that's what this rests on, because the tone here feels very, it's like we're friends. Like, hey, can I get your help? There's a vulnerability there is a transparency there and an honesty there that it sounds really subtle, but it's very apparent, right? Like, I'm brainstorming new style content to write about and need your help. Like, this is something that you would bring someone you have a relationship with into, and it's this transparency that she's allowing, like this intimacy with the audience, that makes us not feel like a survey. It's like, hey, I'm helping her out and we're having a conversation. Because technically, a question like this, what's an ongoing style challenge for you and why? This is an open-ended question. It technically feels like kind of work to respond, right? Like, I have to come up with that. I have to ask myself, like, okay, well, why is this a challenge? Like, it takes some thinking, it takes some consideration, and then I would have to hit reply and actually share it with her and articulate this thing that maybe I haven't thought of before, that maybe it isn't super top of mind. And in past survey teardowns, we've talked about this, about like you designing the question in a way that we jog the memory of the audience, assuming they are not thinking about the topic of our business the moment that they read the survey or read the email that has the survey. So really kind of making it very, very easy to participate and to respond and to engage. We've also talked about best practice of like not really leading with the fact that this is a survey and that there's going to be quote unquote work involved, right? What's the incentive? What's the benefit for the person participating? But when you have a good relationship with your audience, you can kind of chuck all that out the window. The same principle is true in counseling. We learned in training that despite the modalities and techniques that you learn, at its core, the way that counseling, like the kind of root of it, is it rests on the relationship that you have with the client, the relationship between the counselor and the client. If that relationship is strong, even a technique that is not as effective will still work, and a technique that is super effective won't work because of the relationship. And it comes down to that, and that same principle is true here. It is the relationship that she's built and that she continues to build, and that affords this like intimacy and just a directness that doesn't feel like a burden. It doesn't feel like, oh, okay, I have to fill out the survey. It's like an invitation, like, okay, what's an ongoing style challenge and why? Hit reply and let me know. I read every response. Like, there's a tone to this that I'm actually willing to step in. And this has a lot to do with the fact that I've been in sort of her like corner of Instagram for a while. I've been on her email list for a while. I really enjoy and engage with her and with her brand. And so there is more room. There's some it's very forgiving to these sort of best practices and techniques, because the principle, the core, is the relationship is there. And this is something that when you have this kind of relationship that you can really lean into, not only does it afford you like being more direct and asking your audience exactly for what they want, and how you can help them, and not having to like skirt around that or really kind of show the benefits, because you're demonstrating that very clearly all the time. And it becomes obvious. It does become like a relationship. What this affords is ongoing surveys, ongoing conversational surveys that don't feel like surveys, but that you keep being able to like put a pulse out and tap the shoulder of your audience and say, hey, what did you think of this? Hey, what did you think of this? Of course, not every single instance, but the more that you engage and actually reciprocate, right? Like even in saying, I read every response, the more that you demonstrate listening and hearing the feedback from the audience, the more they are willing to like have to offer themselves, which is what you're doing here, right? Like, what's an ongoing style challenge? This is a potentially like intimate thing for me to share. I have to think of this challenge, and I have to think of like how to phrase it, and then I have to share it with someone who I know from a distance, right? And so the more that you can create this rapport with the audience, the stronger that rapport is, the more wiggle room you have when it comes to surveys, to interviews. The audience is a lot more forgiving in your delivery because they get you. They actually want to engage and participate and see the value in it themselves, just by the brand that you have built. So I wanted to share that with you because this is such a great example of that. I hope that it's helpful. And this was actually Survey Teardown 24 of the 50 Surveys Project. So I will see you back here in Survey Teardown 25. Thanks. Bye.